la 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 la. Oh my God. I'm probably going to take that out. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. Another episode in the bag. My name is Tony Iman. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears today. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I always struggle when I start the podcast because I think of everyone who's listening as like my very, very kind family audience. It's kind of like I always think of it as like a group of people, but I also realize that a lot of people listen to podcasts by themselves. Well, I know I listen to a lot of my podcasts on the go, on the move, when I'm working out, when I'm on my way to class. I'm like one person listening, and I always appreciate it when the recording is kind of catered to the listener on an individual level, but at the same time it's kind of like we're all fam. So like I'm always struggling to start the podcast in a way that like I feel like is inclusive of everyone but also tailored enough for the individual listener. I don't know if that makes any sense, but hi. I hope you're doing well. I am recording the podcast at 10 o'clock p.m. on a Sunday, and this has to go up by 12 a.m. Monday morning. So we're cutting it a bit close today. This is the latest I've ever recorded the podcast that I can recall. I typically, at this point, I would have given up. I would have been like, you know what? I'm gone. And I have so much energy, but I think it's also because I took a nap. I took a really, really nice nap, and it was so unintentional. I was laying in bed watching my guilty pleasure show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Nobody asked, but that is my guilty pleasure show. That's quite honestly the only reality TV that I watch. And I fell asleep while watching it, which is kind of like, did I fall asleep because it was boring or was I just really tired? I don't really know, and I don't quite care. But yeah, I had a really good nap. And then when I woke up, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do a few things work related, and then I'm going to record the podcast. But the reason why I feel like I delayed it for this long is because I really was about to put out a statement on Instagram that was like, no podcast episode today. So sorry. We'll see you guys next week. Mostly because prior to taking that nap, I was all talked out, which, guys, I don't want to say rarely, but I hardly ever just want to stay silent for really long periods of time. I have moments where I'm like, okay, my social battery is depleted. I am tired. I don't feel like yapping. I actually do not want to hear the sound of my own voice. I don't want to hear anyone else talk. I just want silence, and I don't want to have to speak. So yeah, I was feeling that way, and I was like, I actually don't have anything to say on this podcast today. Like I have nothing. I have nothing in me. I don't want to think about anything, quite frankly. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to do the podcast because I don't feel like it, and I don't feel like I have anything of use to say. Obviously, you're listening to this hopefully on the day that it's supposed to come out, and I'm yapping away. So that nap, I think I just needed to reset, rejuvenate, get my blood flowing. But what really helped me is my notes. So while I'm on the move, while I'm living my life as I do, oftentimes I have conversations that are really inspiring, or I go through an event that's really inspiring to me, and then it inspires me to think of or informs a podcast episode. Everything I talk about on the podcast is really based off of what I'm currently living or I've currently lived, an experience that I've had, a conversation that I've had, some form of knowledge or content that I've interacted with that has impacted me in a certain way. And I come on here and I talk about it because it's just real and raw, and it's basically my life. But not, all the time I don't always remember everything. So I like to write things down. I'm such a big list person. I have like 1,001 notes in my notes app, and I have one dedicated to the podcast. And so I write down all my ideas. I write down, like, if I go through something or I'm in a conversation and something comes to me like, oh, that would be good for a podcast episode, I would write it down to reflect on later. And so I did that throughout the week, actually, because there were several things, because of just the way the week went, which we will get into momentarily, that really inspired me. And so because of that, I'm like, you know what? I actually do have stuff to talk about. I have a whole list of topics that I haven't even grazed the surface of. So when you think about it, I was like, okay, be honest with yourself. You're just being lazy. It's not necessarily because you can't pick one of these topics and talk about them. but it's really because you don't feel like it, and you're letting your feeling of not wanting to get in the way of what you actually have the ability to do. And I decided that I'm going to invoke that discipline greater than motivation thing and just sit down, get my thoughts together, and stay consistent with this commitment that I have, which is the podcast. And so we landed here at 10 p.m. It's a little bit past 10 now. And I just finished having a snack. I had like some mini pretzels just so I don't fall asleep, and a lot of water. And I'm here. Side note, I don't know if you guys can tell. I really hope the audio is a lot better. If it's not, I'm going to be really sad and really embarrassed. But I finally got a pop filter for my mic. And so now I can say all the pee 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 pop filter. I am going to edit this and be like, why are you making your life difficult? But I got a pop filter, and I'm really hoping that it helps to, one, not only level my voice, but also avoid all those like heavy breathing sounds that I've been having the past couple episodes. The goal in doing this episode, as someone who independently produces and edits and just does everything by herself when it comes to this podcast, is to continue to iterate and continue to get better at production and making sure the sound is great. I definitely want to add music at some point. Like, I want to switch up the editing. I just honestly haven't had the time to look into it and be like, find the right song. And I haven't prioritized that because at this point, I'm like, I just need to get this episodes out and remain consistent with the actual content. And then we can fine tune the details later. That was actually something that I also came across in form of content on TikTok, of all places. I mean, I feel like if you're on the internet and you're on TikTok, we learn every day. So definitely not the most reliable source of knowledge and information, but it does teach you a ton. And I saw something that was quite touching to me. Someone I follow was talking about this. She was like, she came across something that reminded her that when you're trying to bring something into fruition, you don't need to be afraid to be seen trying. And this is not the first time that I've heard the sentiment, this quote, but like, you don't always have to have this perfectionist mindset when it comes to things that you want to start in your life. There are certain things that you want to put out, that certain businesses, certain ideas that you're trying to get off the ground. It does not have to be perfect. And honestly, if you're just starting out, it will not be perfect because it's probably something that's going to take you a lot of time to gain expertise in. And the podcast for me is one of those projects where sometimes I fuzz over just the logistics of it and how to put it together and how to put it out there, because obviously I want to be associated with something that's excellent, and I want it to be something that is easy, digestible, and fun to listen to. But at the end of the day, I always have to remind myself, like, you are one person, you're not a professional. This is more of a passion project, and you're growing and you're learning as you go. But that shouldn't stop you from starting and putting out the good in the world that you have to put out. And so whenever I get in over my head when it comes to like the like post stuff, like editing and figuring out the graphics, but I haven't had the time to prioritize all those things. And if I thought about it, I'm like, okay, because I haven't had the time, does that mean that I shouldn't record and I shouldn't put anything out? No, because I have something to start and I have the time to fine tune all those details. And I'm so grateful for all of you who listen and encourage me every single week to continue to put things out, because you remind me that you are holding space for me to grow alongside you and allowing this podcast to grow in all its forms, but that at the core, you are appreciative of whatever community or whatever type of vibe that we're trying to curate here. And so that was just my little two piece. I'm going to get into my week shortly. Again, I encourage you to take this time to reflect on your week. Feel free to pause this. Please come back, but feel free to pause this and think about how the past week has gone for you, from Monday to Sunday or from last Sunday to Monday, however it is that you start your week, and try to pick out 3 things that you learned from your week. I'm going to share the 3 things that I learned. I mean, I've shared one of them, which is you don't have to have a perfect foundation necessarily in order to start something. You just need a strong foundation. So that was one thing I learned. Now, over the past week, I've been writing a lot of exams. I mentioned it last podcast episode, I believe, that it's been midterm season and we're officially now in spring break. I'm so happy. Is it really a break? We shall see. Because do I have a laundry list of things to do? Absolutely. But do I have to go to class? Absolutely not. And is that enough for me? Yes. That is a huge relief for me, because that obviously just frees up more hours in my day for me to either, i.e., relax and catch up on all the stuff that I've been meaning to do, but I just have not put my energy to. So that's happening. Again, we're still in the past week. I was doing a lot of stuff that has to do with school. Like I said, exams and senior check-ins, which I will explain in a minute. I'm trying not to say so much. I had a little mentoring sesh with someone, with a young adult. It was very sweet, and honestly was just so heartwarming for me, because I think I also mentioned in the previous episodes, I'm starting to become the person that people come to for advice on certain things or just like guidance. And it's so surreal, because every time I do it, I remember just how instrumental that my mentors have been for my journey in different areas of my life. And to start to become that for other people, it blows my mind. I'm like, I'm barely figuring it out. I'm figuring it out, but I also feel like sometimes I'm like a little, I don't know if I'm qualified for this, but it's also like, yeah, you're qualified for this because you've had experiences that this person hasn't had yet. And you've obviously gotten a result that makes them want to rely on you, or makes them want to take your advice seriously. And so you should probably have some faith in that. So that's another thing that I learned, that imposter syndrome is real, but sometimes it really is all in our heads, and you have to sometimes put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about the fact that they've come to you for a reason. And obviously this doesn't apply to every single situation, but typically if you're being looked at as someone who can mentor an individual or give some sort of information to them that they probably hadn't had before, there's probably something about you that sets you apart, or some result that you've received that they're trying to get and they're chasing, and you can probably actually gain value there. And so that was something that was really special to me this past week that I got to do. I took my swimming exam and I passed. I'm going to try and put some applause here, because pat myself on the back. I'm so happy. I did 3 laps using the backstroke. I was tested on treading water. I was tested on what else? I was tested on something else, but I forget. But yeah, I successfully swam by myself without fins or flippers or anything in water, in a body of water by myself the entire time. I'm so proud. I definitely feel like I need more time to perfect my freestyle, because I have this really nasty habit of not breathing while I'm doing it. I just end up like gasping for air. And because of that, my stamina isn't great. I can't really go long distances because, again, you're not breathing. You're going to pass out. I'm always feeling like, oh, I have to stand up because I'm not breathing. And it's like, dummy, you should be breathing while doing it. That's how swimming works. But alas, I did my strongest stroke. It worked for me. And now I feel even more motivated to go back, because I know that I actually have the ability to save myself if needed. And all I need to do is just put in some more extra hours, put in some reps, and hopefully I get a lot better. But yeah, now I can officially say I can swim. Am I the best swimmer in the world? Absolutely not. Am I the strongest swimmer? No. But can I do it? Absolutely. And that was the goal. So that's something in Q1 that has been definitely checked off. I'm so proud of me. For the way I'm talking about it, you should be able to tell that I'm quite proud of this little achievement. Actually, of this big achievement. So that happened. And what else of note? I ran for distance this past, was it Friday or Thursday? Thursday. And I bring this up because I've actually never done that before. I'm such a run for time type of person. I've been running for time. And what that means, and for anyone who's just like, I don't know, not a runner and doesn't understand whatever it is I'm talking about, just for context, running for time is when you're like, okay, I'm going to run for 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how fast I'm running. It doesn't matter how long I'm running. You kind of focus more on pace when you run for time versus how long. But typically, it's like if you're getting faster, your pace is faster. You're able to log more miles in a shorter amount of time. And I feel like a lot of runners do that because everybody's goal, well, most people, their goal is to ultimately get faster every single time and get better and have better form and better stamina every time you run. Running for distance is literally just saying, I'm going to run 3 miles today. I don't care how long it takes. Could take me an hour. could take me more. I'm running 3 miles. I honestly wish as a beginner runner, and I'm gonna say it to anyone who is doing like running for the first time. I really hope you did not hear that. Oh my God, Duolingo, mind your business. Sorry guys if you heard that. But yeah, so I really wish as a beginner runner I took that approach because I've been running for time since I've started running. And honestly, I don't get I feel I've definitely gotten faster, but it made me get really frustrated with running because I wasn't getting as fast as I wanted to, as quickly as I wanted to. And I finally decided, you know what? At this point, I just need the exercise. I'm just trying to get a certain amount of miles in because I know that I'm going to burn at least this amount of calories doing it. And I'm going to feel really good. And I just need to clear my head. And I feel like that's a really good distance. So I decided to run 2.5 miles just at the end of my day because I was like, okay, I've had swimming in the morning. I've had a full day of classes, exams. I just need something to just take my mind off stuff and center me. 2.5 miles for some reason was just like my sweet spot because it's like very short distance. I mean, relatively short distance. And I just figured, oh, it's not going to take too long. I could definitely knock that out in 40 minutes, even if I'm running like my slow pace or whatever, my easy pace. And yeah, so I did that. Oh my God, I enjoyed it so much. I did not think about pace one time. I did not think about, oh, it was dragging on for so long. I pushed myself. I did sprints at times. I did jogs. Like I was just having fun running at different kind of speeds and playing around because the only thing in my mind was I just need to cover 2.5 miles. Doesn't really matter how fast, how I do it. I just need to make sure I run at least 2.5 miles. And I was able to get a little bit over too because I was just having fun with it. And it was so, 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 so good. So I highly recommend for anyone who's starting to run or thinking about getting to running, I would highly recommend you do like a distance run rather than a timed run. Yeah, all these things. It's really hard for me this week to pick my, oh my God, to pick my peak, pick my peak, peak my peak. Say that 5 times. See how that feels. It's really hard for me to pick. This is hilarious. It's really hard for me to pick my peak this time around because there's just so many good things that happened this past week that has really helped me because the prior week I was coming off of some really terrible news and I wasn't feeling it and I was really sad and it took everything in me to kind of shift my focus. But I really think that a peak would definitely be me passing my swimming test, specifically me going through all of my tests and having, good results that I'm proud of, results that I am comfortable with. Glory to Jesus, y'all. Like we did it. Midterms are kind of over. I still have 2 outstanding midterms that I'm going to have to do after break, which is just ridiculous. But that's a separate topic. And then another peak would be just some news that I received from a friend, from someone who I'm very just excited to see what they do. They were able to get into a really prestigious program and I'm just so proud of them. I'm so over the moon. Like literally found out today and I didn't even know that they were trying to do this, but the fact that they did it successfully and they shared it with me, they shared that joy just makes me so happy. I really love to see my people win because I honestly feel like it's a great reflection of me personally because I get to do this, come on a podcast and just brag. So I'm really, if you're listening to this for any reason, I'm really proud of you. You know who you are, and I hope you have the best time. Another thing that is my peak for this week was some praise I got from a peer that I respect so much. Just that unexpected love. Like, it's so gratifying when you work so hard at something and you're really trying to do it to the best of your ability and you're really trying to bring that excellence, and unexpectedly you get acknowledged and that is seen. This person really said, I see you, girl. And that was so heartwarming for me because it was really encouraging because a lot of the things I do sometimes feel very thankless. Even if nobody notices, this is the energy I'm going to bring. And so it's like, I'm not doing it for the praise, but wow, does it feel so good to be acknowledged and to be acknowledged in front of your peers, in front of people that you really admire. It made me feel good. So that's definitely a peak. And oh my God, I have been talking for like 20 minutes just about my past week, which is insane. I think I really need to get to the crux of this topic for today. And if you're a first time listener, I'm so sorry. Like, I typically do not spend like half the episode talking about my week. But here we are right now. Uh, for someone who thought she didn't have anything to say, I clearly have a lot to say. But the crux of this episode, if you can't tell by the title, is the value of a liberal arts education. The reason that I wanted to talk about this, or that I want to talk about this rather, is because I go to a liberal arts school. I've currently been in a liberal arts core vibe, and I've had the experience of not quite liberal arts and then transitioning into more liberal arts focused. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. And again, well, to finish my thought, the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I looked at all my exams that I've had this past week. They're all very different in the way they were administered. They cover a wide range of topics. I had everything from swimming to statistics, which is like, I'm an econ major and I'm not an athlete. So how did we get that full range? I started to just evaluate like, wow, what is my education teaching me? And then I also had senior check-in, which I mentioned earlier, which is basically something that my university does where they check in with other people who are graduating, for lack of a better word, check in, just to make sure that you're on track. If you need help with getting a job, if you need help with figuring out your purpose, okay, I'm getting this degree. What do I do with this degree now? I think it's a super great resource. I took advantage of it because you're never above advice and help and just perspective when it comes to figuring out your purpose and whatever it is that you want to do in your life. So I did that. And again, it really brought up to me, what is the value of my education and what sets a liberal arts approach apart from other more specialized approaches. So we're going to talk about it. I went to school in Nigeria for most of my life, from like kindergarten all the way to high school. I went to a private international school. You have first to sixth grade, which I believe, and first to sixth grade is like primary school. So that's very like generalist. You learn everything. You learn the science, the arts, the language, handwriting, all of those things that you learn. Easy. You learn that. Then you get into secondary school or high school. There's junior high and there's senior high, or junior secondary school and senior secondary school. But junior secondary school starts from the 7th grade up until the 9th grade. And that's classified as junior secondary. And then you have the 10th grade to the 12th grade, which is then what am I call it? Which is then senior secondary school. Now, compared to like places like America, where you have, or even the UK, for like my my knowledge, in America, I feel like high school starts from like the 9th grade. You have junior high. I'm sorry, high school starts from like the 7th grade or something. You have 7th and 8th grade or 6th grade. I don't know. I didn't go to high school here, but yeah, that happens, and then you go into high school, which is like from 9th grade all the way to the 12th grade. But I personally felt like I was in high school from the moment I was in 7th grade. I was like, I'm a high schooler. Talk to me nice. And I'll get into why I'm breaking all this down. But yeah, that's the way it works. And I think in the UK, where you might have like year 13 or something like that, maybe you're doing A levels or something like that, that's kind of like an additional layer for Nigerian education. Typically, your high school career ends at 12th grade. You take your WAEC, you take your university exams, and you're done. But while you're in high school, 7th to 9th grade is sort of generalist as well. At least in my school, the way we did it, the way it was done was that you learn everything. You learn science, you learn art, you learn business, you learn everything that sets you up for a strong foundation, and to also help you realize what your strengths are. And then by the time that you're moving to senior secondary in the 10th grade, then you have to pick a concentration. So think about it as like a major. So you pick your sciences, or you pick arts, or you pick business, and then you have kind of like a number of electives to choose from that can range by everything. Now that kind of model it's kind of liberal arts core, right? So I've been in a liberal arts environment for the longest time. I feel like my entire educational system has been very reminiscent of a liberal arts education. And I'm so appreciative of it now that I've come to college and also kind of had that same experience, because it's opened my mind in a way that I never even realized. And as an RA, I had to take a class just related to my role, and we really also went into kind of like a deep dive into like what is liberal arts core and what is the value in a liberal arts education. And the biggest thing that I can tell you is that it develops your mind in a way that it develops your mind to think broadly and to think dynamically. And it's very useful because you find yourself when you're coming out of college and you're in the real world, or when you're in college but getting like tidbits of the real world, that you need that kind of very flexible perspective and flexible muscles, like, and just like thinking processes in order for you to be effective. Google defines a liberal arts education as an education that encompasses a broad range of subjects, including humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences, aiming to foster critical thinking, communication, and problem solving skills. So, yeah, it's all about expansive. You know, you hear words like expansive, intellectual grounding, building foundation, humanistic inquiry. Like, it's all about making sure that you have the tools that is needed to be able to critically think about anything. But more than that, I feel like the crux of a liberal arts education, especially when you think about it in a university point of view, is for them to develop every part of you. So it's not just about being smart. It's not just about you being able to do math and so you being able to write the best essay, or you being able to speak eloquently. It's also about you learning about emotional intelligence, social skills, you know, your body, your health, how to take care of yourself, how to cultivate relationships. Like, it really goes all into the physical, emotional, mental, and sometimes even spiritual health of a student. And I feel like, especially looking at my course load this semester, I'm learning all of these things that are not necessarily like open a book and read it. It's really about doing and really about experiencing. Like this past semester, as you guys know, I've learned a new practical skill, swimming. I'm learning how to, you know, build websites. I'm also learning about probability and statistics and how to figure out, you know, best returns on investment. Like, I'm learning so many different things that target so many different walks of life. And I feel like that has informed my worldview in such a fundamentally beneficial way, because now I have all these tidbits of information and I have all these different ways of thinking about things that when I come into a room and I'm confronted with a problem, I'm not approaching it with a one size fits all. I'm approaching it with a very dynamic mindset. And I think that's also the reason why these days I find that a lot of companies are very open to hiring liberal arts core people, especially in industries like finance and like consulting and things like that. Like, you don't necessarily have to have a degree that is exactly related to the job you're applying for. You just need to showcase the fact that you can think, and you can think critically, and you can think dynamically. And that's what a liberal arts education gives you. It develops your mind and it develops your understanding of the world in a way that doesn't box you in a way that encourages you to have discourse, and have conversations and be able to have productive ones at that, especially with people you disagree with. I think that's a skill that I'm trying to build really actively. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities, even though they are very uncomfortable, where I am forced to confront things that take me out of my comfort zone, because it really makes me, like, you know, work that muscle of like, how do I navigate this situation gracefully? How do I articulate my point in a way that can be heard properly? And like I said, this is not just something that came up from university. This is something that has been entrenched into my life since I was a kid, just because of the school I went to. So shout out to my parents, my mom specifically, for choosing, you know, that educational style and making sure that I was as exposed as possible. And shout out to my school as well for all the things that they did. and the ways that they taught us and all my teachers. Now, I'm not really expanding and going into details because I don't want to make this super long. I feel like we could go on and talk about the pros and cons of a liberal arts versus a more specialized education or like trade school or things like that. Not to say that they're all bad, but as someone who is a product of liberal arts core, I think that of a liberal arts education, I find a lot of value in it. And I also think it's shaped my personality and, my work experience and my social experience in ways that I very much doubt that, other types of schooling would have done for me. And I'm quite satisfied with the bang for my buck. I'm quite satisfied with the skills I've picked up and I'm still picking up along the way. So I don't really have anything bad to say about it. If I wasn't an advocate, I would still be like, I don't think it's a bad way to go. I don't think you can go wrong. So yeah, just wanted to comment on that really quickly. It's crazy how this is like the whole point of the episode and it's like not super long, but I don't like to like ramble on and on about it. If you guys want a part 2 where you want me to break down more what I think the pros and cons of a liberal arts core education would be or is, I would love to do that. I would love to actually interview someone who maybe went to a more specialized school like trade school or music school or something else and kind of compare and kind of see where our experience is at. So low key, I might do some digging for that because now that I'm thinking about it, see, this is how things come to me when I'm like talking or I'm like experiencing something and I'm like, wait, that would be such a fire idea for the podcast. If you're listening and you're like you're like on the opposite end of the spectrum where you had a super specialized education and you want to have a conversation, like please reach out to me. My email is in the bio of this podcast. You can reach me on Instagram at I am 20 Iman. Like I am so down to interview someone and kind of have that perspective. I think it'll be really cool. So yeah, let me know you guys' thoughts. Let me know about your educational experiences and how you feel like that has shaped you. What do you wish you would have learned or what do you want to learn still? What are kind of the approaches you take when you're thinking about your classes or your approach to education in general? An interesting question also that I think is worth diving into really quickly is the idea of, is college worth it? Now, this is another like big thing that we can definitely dive into and have millions and millions of conversations about and all sorts of discourse. But at the moment, I will say I think college is worth it. However, I have said to some of my friends that I feel like I wouldn't go to college if I had some other skill that didn't need me to have a degree, or if I was in a society or in an industry that didn't necessarily need a degree. I have changed my mind about this. So like again, one of those like I'm allowed to change my mind, I'm allowed to grow, I'm reflecting. Right now, I think that a lot of people don't like the idea of a college education because one, it's really expensive depending on, what state, country, side of the world you're in. But for the vast majority, education is not free, quite frankly, or you get to a certain point and it's not free anymore. And so it's really expensive, especially when you're trying to get the best of the best, right? So you're kind of like, that's a lot of money to learn something that life can teach me. Fair enough. And then you think about it, I have other skills, or maybe you find out that you have a talent or something else that you could just possibly do and you can be, great at it, like entrepreneurship. You don't necessarily need to have a degree in entrepreneurship or management to be able to efficiently run a business and build it from the ground up. You don't need to have VC this and all that to be able to do all that. So you're just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go do it. Cool. All well and good. However, I do think that a lot of times people come to college because they feel like that's their only way because they don't have all those things. They don't have that mind of entrepreneurship or whatever. And maybe they're not a singer, they're not an actress. They don't have all those things where you can literally just break into the industry based on sheer determination, working hard, and talent alone. You need to have some sort of formal education in order to get into certain spaces. Otherwise, you won't be accepted, or it's just so hard. And so they come to school thinking like, I'm trying to figure out a way to live life. I'm trying to figure out a way to have a livelihood from this. And it takes the fun out of it. So now I'm of the opinion that I would 100% go to college. But if I had a choice, I would probably maybe, if I had the choice to do this all over again and not have the pressures of, I need to get a job, I need to take care of my family, I need to like be able to sustain myself, I may probably not do the major that I have done or I have chosen to do. I will probably have a different degree because I will be doing something that fundamentally feeds what I am interested in above all. It would be like I want to study information technology for fun because I think it's cool and I love learning about it and I love just thinking about it and spending hours on end about it. I might do something on African studies just because I want to understand our history a lot more. Like just something that is not related to work at all. It will literally be just because of the love of learning. Yeah, like I said, it takes the fun out of it when you don't have that privilege. Very few people have that really cool phenomenon where it's like, I'm studying something that I love to think about and I can simultaneously make a great living off of it. Not everybody kind of has that, you know, excellent ROI. So, but if you're able to do it, I'm like, props to you. But I highly recommend a college education because, like I said, it's just learning is just so fun. Learning is an amazing thing. Learning is a privilege. However, you do it, there's some sort of benefit to it. Being able to do it in a more structured manner, in a way that, you know, really guides you through the paces, like in a way that is organized and helps you to develop fundamentally, is such an amazing opportunity. And also, don't get me wrong, like I wasn't forced to do my major. I quite like my major. I think it's very intellectually stimulating. It's very fun to learn about most of the time. However, as I grow, I'm like, you know, do I want to get a PhD in economics? No, because there are other things that I'm far more interested in. But at the end of the day, it's really just I feel like I appreciate the learning itself, learning as a concept, learning as an experience rather than the exact topics or majors and all that. And so based on that principle, I'm like, you know what, I would definitely do college all over again. So yeah, just putting that out there. This might be a really long, juicy episode, guys. Oh my God. I'm like so gassed. Two other things that I wanted to call out, just like a show that I highly recommend. I think everybody needs to go watch it, is Surviving Summer. It's an Australian show called Surviving Summer. And I really love it because it's about kids. Well, not kids, but like teenagers. And it's like a coming of age type vibe. And I loved it so much because one, the Australian accent is absolutely beautiful to listen to. But I think what I really, really loved about the show was the fact that it depicted love or like, or just like, what's it called? Friendships and, you know, those beginning types of infatuations between young adults in such a beautiful, pure way. And I miss shows like that. I feel like a lot of shows these days are so hypersexualized and it's so removed from the actual feeling, or like they always have to show some sort of sexualization of the thing where it's like we can just like each other and explore what that looks like. And it's so cute, like it's so wonderful, like it warmed my heart. I found myself rooting for certain people to like tell each other they like each other, and some people I was like, no, why do you have feelings for her? Like, I hate this. Mind you, these are like, I mean, in the show they're like 16 or whatever. And you know, it's just all about like, I kind of like this person, I kind of like how he treats me, like I think he's cute, like that very innocent love. Bring back clean love in shows, bring back innocent loves. If you guys have any recommendations for shows that are just pure innocent love, please, or like, for lack, because it's puppy love, it's not actual love, but you know, if you have any shows that depict that, I 100% want to watch them. Flood my comment section, DM me. I want to see it because it is so heartwarming to watch, and I don't have to skip over like the spicy scenes because I'm just like, I don't want to see that right now. I can actually enjoy every second of the episode and enjoy how it relates to the storyline. And so yeah, that was just something that I observed and I was able to kind of use as a palate cleanser for myself in between my midterms and studying and things like that. And so yeah, that's kind of it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, let me know your thoughts. Please feel free to rate this podcast, live it 5 stars. 4 stars are acceptable because yes, I am not perfect. We're iterating, we're growing, but 5 stars is preferred. Don't do anything less than that because then you just hate me. And what's the point? So make sure you do that. Make sure to leave a comment if you're listening on Spotify. Again, you can comment through reviews. You can find it at the bottom, the very, very bottom of your page. You can also reach me, find me, follow me on Instagram at I am Tony Iman. Thank you again so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.